Hello.
Hello. Hi,
Hi.
Vijaya.
How are you? I'm
Very
trying to.
well.
Hi, we're
Wonderful.
live on YouTube and Facebook.
Okay. Thank you, Tanvi. Hi, Vijaya. Welcome to Coffee Con with My Child First. And we are so happy to have you here. We are having some really interesting conversations that I know today would be rocking. We
Oh,
have with us Dr. Vijaya Krishnan. She is the founder of Sanctum Natural Birth Center in Hyderabad. She's a certified professional midwife and a certified Lamaze trainer in India. Welcome.
thank you, Divya. I'm so happy to be here. I think all conversations with you are always fun. We have had like so many discussions about, especially this particular topic, but then we've always had like really good everything from life in general to birth in particular. So I know this is going to be fun. And thank you for having me.
Yes, but let me tell you first off the bat that this entire month is happening because of that one suggestion that you said, "Oh, Divya, I forgot to answer you back, but can't we have it in the evening, say at 9?" And here we are with on at 9. So truly, you're the person to give, and that you have midwifed Coffee Con 2020 for My Child First.
That's
Thank you
awesome.
for
That's
that.
awesome.
And I was
That's
thinking of
awesome.
all the coffee we had when I was in Hyderabad, the long hours of chatting and the lovely coffee, and therefore Coffee Con. So now our viewers know why this is called Coffee Con, though we've got so many inquiries saying, why coffee? Who has coffee at 9 o'clock? I say, well, Dr. Vijay Krishnan and I do. And that's good enough for me. Okay, so our topic today is a really broad one and is the one that we can't talk in, we can't really put in words, but we've had so
Right.
many discussions around it.
Mhm.
So let's start with saying that what does trust mean to you and how it has refined it over the years that you've been a midwife?
Um, so again, I think trust is first, if you look at any human being, I feel like there has to be some trust in someone somewhere, you know, from the simple act. I'm thinking of something as simple as sometimes my driver bringing me bills and saying, ma'am, these are the bills that need to be paid and I have paid in advance and, can you, like reimburse me, And here is one aspect where I would think and say, okay, let's see how much add up everything, or I tell him, I trust you. Just tell me what's the total, I'll give it to you, and I think that trust develops over a period of time in life in general. I think in specific to health, I think it develops in terms of how good your own health has been, what has been your sort of over the course of the many years, how you have viewed your own body, and then it develops. The next stage comes if you have to go to a care provider, and whether they instill a sense of um, um, wellness in you or a sense of anxiety in you. And I think all these things have to come together to, especially as related to pregnancy, labor, childbirth, that one starts to then feel more in control, and that control adds to your trust in the process, right? So that's what I feel like it is, because trust is such a basic. It's a very basic emotion, but it's also a very intense emotion. You can feel distrust, mistrust, and trusting all at once for different reasons, right?
That's true. That's very true. And you said something very beautiful. I want to highlight it. You said, that how it is your own experience of your own health. And then when you go to a caregiver and if they are thinking about your body breaking down and problems,
Yes,
how can you ever have trust in your own body?
exactly.
So I think that part is such a significant part that you said that, what has been your own experience and what is being reflected back at you.
Exactly.
And I think that's the challenge today because majority of our healthcare, especially around maternity care, is with doctors. And our doctors' trainings, we all know, are around pathology. And they're
Hmm.
very good at that. And that's a specific purpose. So, how they view the body, the baby, the process, and how you as a midwife view it. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Okay, here's the thing. I'm just coming fresh out of a birth, so I'll talk about that one.
Yes.
This is a mom who just had her VBAC, which is vaginal birth after a previous cesarean section. Wisp of a woman, just about 5 feet tall, came to us at like 36 plus weeks of pregnancy, weighing 45 kgs exactly. Yes, and had not gained, maybe like she had gained 2 kgs in her whole pregnancy. So she started off maybe at 44 and just had gained to 46 in 36 weeks. And then she wants this VBAC. Language barriers, teaching a shortened version of classes in Hindi, making her believe in her body, giving her adequate nutrition advice. And she's like, she looks, I mean, here is somebody who I feel is like I can carry with one hand, you know? Seriously. And she's saying, I want this feedback. And she's like, I said, okay. And her otherwise her head history was clean. Previous sister time the same thing. Everyone had told her, your BMI, you cannot have a baby naturally. And then she goes in for to have a cesarean section early, like at 30, not even touching 37 weeks, has a 2 kg baby,
Oh, okay.
right? So here was our thing twofold. One is I want her to gain weight because I want this baby to be a better birth weight than that baby,
Yeah.
right? And then the second thing is developing her trust in her body. And in the 4 weeks, that's so today she is at 39.5 weeks, she had a baby. And in these 4 weeks that we have been with her, she gained 5 kgs.
Yeah, I wonder
And
about that.
yes, 5 kgs, right? And we pushed her, and she has her own body image. Society has told her that she's too thin, like she how to grow a baby. It started with that the first time, and now she knows she can grow a baby, but she's expecting a tiny baby. She's expecting problems, whatever. She reads around and she feels that if she carries a big baby, she's going to have problems in delivering. And then she has to have a VBAC. So this is a whole new game for her, right? And so 2 days in a row she had pre-labor, and every day in the morning she would call me sort of weepy, not crying, but weepy, right? And saying, this is not going anywhere, पर मेरे से बर्दाश्त बिल्कुल नहीं हो रहा है, but मैं कैसे करूंगी? You know, so it was not कि वो बर्दाश्त नहीं हो रहा था, but mentally she has told herself so many times कि नहीं होगा मेरे से, मैं कैसे करूंगी? Then they said, you know, we have talked about all this, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this morning she again calls VP again and she says, you know, now the contractions are very quick. And, you know, I hear her. I still think she has some time, but I say, okay, now I think it's okay for you to come to the center. We'll see you. I think we can support you here onward. So here she's dilated 7 centimeters already. Okay. Now here's the thing. From there, that was at 7 in the morning. She just had her baby. It was not the body, it was here.
Yes.
So she had to let go of that distrust of her own body. She had to let go and say, I can actually do this, you know. And then she dilates and she doesn't want to push.
Ah.
So you have another conundrum now. You've been dilated, and it's okay. And I know she feels the pressure because she sits on in the bathroom in the toilet seat, and she's feeling pressure, but she's holding back. She's like, I can't do this. I can't do this, ma'am. I cannot do this. I'm like, okay, there's only one way out. Your baby's going to come either this way, or if you really absolutely will not do it, then the only thing against everything that I know can happen, we have to take you for a cesarean because I can't do the pushing for you, right? And 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 then the husband, the dynamic is he is there. These are very traditional orthodox people. So though he wants to be in there, he doesn't want to be in there.
Yeah.
She doesn't want him to be in there. It's her. If she says she wants to be him, he will come in, but she doesn't want him to be in here.
Yeah.
So it's us, her conversations, us, her conversations. Eventually, just before pushing the baby out, that baby would have come out 2 hours ago. But it took her that long to let go of the fear, to say, yes, it's okay. And do you know what's the weight of her baby? 3.03 kgs.
Wow. Compared to her weight, it's quite substantial.
The baby, and length, long too. The baby is half her length. you know. So I think women's bodies know how to give birth. You have talked about it many times. We have talked about it, but this is the trust and distrust factor. She trusted the place. At no point did she really want a cesarean. Right now, if the care providers, if she says that, "नहीं madam, मैं कैसे करूँगी, क्या करूँगी," one easy way is to say, "चलो, let's go for a C-section," right? But you know her as a person, and every
Yeah.
time you give her that pep talk and sit with her, and when I said to her, "You don't, you know, I don't want you. I know you don't want me to pity you. I know
Yeah.
you want me to be strong with you." And she says, "Yes." And then her face would become a bit better. And she would have, like, and she didn't want to go into the tub. She had all these things: no tub, no bathroom, no nothing. She had a lot of back pain. So finally I said, "Well, do you want a sterile water injection?" She says, "Fine." पक्का
Mm.
पेन चला जाएगा ना, सिर्फ थोड़ी देर के लिए तो कम हो जाएगा. Said, बस that's all I need. So
Yeah.
again, having options. So, and one of the beauty about midwifery is that, like, we have all these tools which can create time,
Yeah.
and often wrong with using an entonox. There's nothing wrong with steroids. It's about dragging somebody kicking and screaming in labor. It's not about some sort of punishment. That's about supporting her the right way at the right time and saying, "This is where I can
Right.
give you a little extra. This is where I pull back." I think that
Yeah.
now she's like super happy. She says, "I want to hug everybody." I said, "Well, wait before you leave. We'll be up close and personal. Before you leave, we'll give you a hug. But she's amazingly happy now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
now
kind
she
of
can go. Sorry, and now she's going to go and tell this. Like she said, "अभी तो मैं जाके बताऊंगी सबको कि my body doesn't
Mm.
fail me. सभी ने मुझे बोला था कि I will never be able to give birth."
Yeah. Yeah. There are, okay, Vijay, for a moment I can't hear you there. So, is it just
You,
me or is it everybody feeling that? Tanvi?
can you hear me now? No?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so, I'm hearing this. And, every time we tell a story like this, it's like, wow, that's what we have to achieve.
Right.
But what is really getting in the way of getting this trust is this achievement end product.
Correct.
I think her joy is not because she gave birth vaginally. It's
Right.
also about renegotiating with her body that you and I as in the mind, the self, and the body
Hmm.
are one, that
Right.
we can work together. And I
Hmm.
think this is not only in terms of Vijaya achievement, because I've also seen women who face challenges of labor, their birth has not gone the way they had planned, and yet that connection with their body, their own knowing, their intuition, their ability to make decisions for their child at the right time gives them that sense of trust in themselves as parents. That's the
Absolutely.
nuance. And I remember we were having this conversation that, at one end, our statistics, the fact that so many women have natural birth at your center sets up like an expectation on the other side, कि अरे वहां जाएंगे तो natural birth हो जाएगा, which yet again is not trusting yourself.
Exactly. No, I think you're hitting the nail right on the head, because I think it's not about anybody giving anyone a natural birth, a center giving normal, it's the opportunity to what you said, negotiating that path for yourself, opportunity to unravel some of the myths and the mysteries of the body, opportunity to say, how can I grow as a person through this process? And I think if the expectation is only like, I'm going to stand on one leg and have a normal delivery, very often it goes extraordinarily on the opposite end, right? Because then you have really not focused on the process, you're focused on the end product, like you said. And who has control over the end product? As far as birth is concerned, no one except that mom, that baby, that hour or that minute, right? Other than that, no one has any control over it. It goes. And that's why the classes, again, I come back to that, classes where there is good information given, independent educators sitting and talking about, and having people have that back and forth in terms of what are they understanding, what do I feel about this XYZ? What are these points? How do I negotiate something if it comes to discomfort in pregnancy? How does that correlate to a larger discomfort as it may be in labor? What kind of things make me calm now? How do I bond with my partner in order to get a certain, a feeling of oneness, for lack of a better word? And then how do I use that same oneness in labor and birth to allow that to progress in a way that's more symbiotic for that moment, right? I just feel like everything has to be symbiotic. It has to come together. Otherwise, you can have that big mismatch of expectations. You come in thinking, and you hear all these birth stories, right? So that's the other thing too. Birth stories are great. And we started, publishing birth stories. You started publishing a long time ago. We started publishing it. But again, what happens is people read these birth stories and think their birth is going to happen on unicorns and rainbows and, perfect, purple hearts. And while is it good to aim for? We write those stories, or we have mothers relate those stories because we want to give a good amount of confidence that birth is a normal natural process and that it's something to strive for should you want it, right? But then you read all this, and if you come if you have not made the effort to really negotiate all these things during your pregnancy and birth, you come into it thinking, oh, I read 100 stories about 100 people, but it's not your story. Your story is still got to be written, and until you have your baby, it's not written. So how you craft that and how you get that trust to say, it's okay for me to trust my body and craft my own birth story is, I think, the essential part of this conversation.
Yeah. So we also see that a lot in Neha's written saying, how do you think it works when a woman puts her trust in you, the midwife or the doula, over her trust in her own body? So that's a tricky one. I have my experience, you have yours. So let's hear it from you.
Why don't you talk about yours, then I'll talk about mine.
Okay. So I feel, how does the woman view you? We are talking in terms of her expectation versus her trust in you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when she puts her trust in you, that openness of the word or that feeling of trust actually opens her up to the experience.
Exactly.
The tipping point is that is she putting the onus of her achievement on you? Or because you're my doula or you're my midwife, I will have that birth? Or does she say, I trust you to guide me? There's a difference. Absolutely. And that quality of trust. And I'm going to tell you this little story. I had a mom who at 38 weeks got a routine pelvic exam. She came to my class. She said, today I found that the doctor was a little bit, she was a little bit taken aback after my internal. Something is wrong. I can feel it in my bones. And I said, well, did she say anything to you? She said, no, she didn't. So all said and done, everything was left to it. And then I didn't follow it up and she didn't follow it up and doctor didn't say anything. But she read it from the body language. The doctor must have said, or whatever. And then she went into labor and she, and the baby was in the birth canal. And then the doctor walked in and she put her finger, she saw the baby, where station she was, and she laughed. So in that moment, we all looked at her and saying, what's happening? She said, wait, let's get the baby, receive the baby, and I'll tell you what's it. Mm-hmm. And this woman was turning throughout her labor to the right. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, oh, she should be on her left. She should, And then I said, what do I know? Forget it, If she likes it this way, let her do it. And then even while giving birth, she rotated to the right, opened her leg up, and she pushed the baby out. And the baby came out. It was a fairly good weight baby. And she's a short woman. Mm. And then the doctor said, 3 weeks ago, because it was coming after 40 weeks. 3 weeks ago when I did an internal, I found her left ischial spine turning in. Mm. Which means the pelvis, the narrowest part was this way. Mm-hmm. And she said, but I didn't feel like saying it. But I told the yoga instructor that I don't think she can have that because that pelvic, that smallest part is turned in. And what do we know? Mm-hmm. Her body kept turning to the right and opening it up. And then the baby came out. And then we had a nice laugh at it. And this is where the trust issue came up because the doctor told me that she really, she did this because she really trusted you, Divya. Mm-hmm. And I looked at her and for a moment I had this profound feeling saying, no, it wasn't me. Her ability to trust us, that's her gift, not ours. To
Mm-hmm.
surrender to something so truly
Mm-hmm.
and trust that, okay, you'll guide me. I think that was her strength. So for me, trust is that power within you that allows you to be vulnerable, open,
Absolutely.
flexible, receiving, surrendering. Because you
Mm-hmm.
say, no matter how it turns out, there is something that will catch me, and that's trust for me. And
Yeah.
from that moment onwards, that was the idea in every conversation, in every
Mm-hmm.
training, to bring out that quality of what that strength of letting go or believing in somebody means, because that for me was trust.
Yeah. Truth.
And I'm sure there are more than that examples for you as well, because I'm just the doula and I'm there for support. But they come to you with even more trust, putting everything in your hands. And I know so many stories coming back from you, Vijaya. So, what does trust mean for you?
Um, I think different things with different people, first of all. But I also feel like I think a lot of it's got to relate to some of them come with, like people referring word of mouth, whatever. Those are the people who will come and say, we have had five people in our family, friend circle who have trusted you, so I'm trusting you blindly. But again, that's the place where I have to pull them back and say, okay, they have said this. I'm so happy to see you. And oftentimes I also have this feeling like whenever they're coming from multiple people in the family or friend circle have it, I also feel that they have a similar sort of mindset, a similar sort of, so that sort of works out nicely in their favor. But I then have to pull them back and then talk about, again, trusting back in your body. What does it, again, having these conversations about, I always feel that the big difference between an obstetric practice and not all practices, I'm not going to generalize here because I'm sure there are many people who still practice the old fashioned way, but still I think a majority of the practices, I think the difference between an obstetric practice and a midwifery practice is one is consultation, another is conversation.
Yeah.
And I feel that is very, very important because that consultation will happen in the middle of a conversation, but it should not be the only thing because that's where that over the period of time you get to build that sense of what this person is, who are these people, what do they want. So we have had some of the best births happen for people who have walked in at 41 and a half weeks because they have done their research, they have seen what they don't want, and then they have come to us and said, okay, here is it. I've done what I need to do now. I'm going to let go and I'm going to let you guide me through it, which is what you had said earlier, that surrender, that feeling that
Yeah.
no, I'm going to let you guide me through it. And then we have had some of the most, I won't say traumatic, but most I don't know what the word is, but I'm
Challenging.
challenging. Yes, I think challenging is a very good word for people who have come in from day one, right? And you're just like you said, "Yeah, फिर बोल बोल के I'm just thinking, okay, you're still asking me at the end of this Ramayan who is Ram and Sita, right? So I think that internalizing is so important as a part of building trust. I feel that one of the challenges that people have in the current atmosphere of medicalized childbirth, for lack of a better word, is to be able to get enough information without over information because that's the part. You have Google, obviously, you have all sorts of groups, right? And you have, without that trust in your care provider, if somebody is under my care at 27 weeks and he or she goes and puts out in a big group saying, my care provider is saying this, what do you all think? I think that's not a bad thing, but I think somewhere you have to question if, are you just asking for information and then internalizing and doing some more work and going back and talking to your care provider, or are you in such a place with that vulnerability, with that sort of like an inability to have a conversation, that you are now seeking healthcare online, right? And we all are doing so much of this online talks. We are giving, the COVID has brought out so many things that we never thought it would bring out. But at the end of the day, I think you don't crowdsource personal health,
Yes.
right? And I think that's where I find sometimes, because people will say what they want to say, but
Yeah.
ultimately who is responsible? I think this is a very important question, because if you put up a post, say in a big forum, and you say, I am 42 and a half weeks right now, and my BP is 120 over 100, and my doctor is saying XYZ, and nobody else knows the whole picture. And then you have groups which will say 100% weight, nobody should touch you, and there are groups which will say, oh no, you should listen to your doctor, and ultimately you'll end up more confused. So that's the trust, bringing back the trust. What do I feel? Do I feel informed? Do I feel supported with my current care provider? Do I feel good in my own body? Do I feel good baby movements? Do I feel that if I tomorrow, if things were to change, would my care provider receive me with respect?
Yeah.
Would I feel safe going back to her? And if all these questions are met, then I think that crowdsourcing has some value. Otherwise, it has no value.
But also, if you're taking in all the opinions, how is that opinion different than what your care provider has said? Because they're all opinions.
Right?
Unless
Exactly.
you said that word, until you've not integrated it and felt how that it feels for you. Where
Hmm.
is where is the point where you say, okay, I've got this information, and yes, this feels doable to me, or this
Yes.
feels right for me. And sometimes I also feel when I read on these groups that, when they're typing all this, I'm thinking that whose agenda are they driving? Number one,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think people only want to hear what they want to hear. That is why
Yes.
they're hearing so many opinions.
Correct.
Because if it is your care, the only person you need to ask this question from is your care provider.
Exactly.
Okay, you're saying this, tell me the signs you're seeing, or what are your reasons for this thing? What are we not seeing here that you are seeing? Can you explain this a little bit further for me? And maybe you'll even hear from the care provider, these are the signs I'm seeing, and this is my personal limit.
Yes.
And that is yet
Exactly.
and yet a trust building is her personal limit. I also find on these groups that women ask these questions and they're very, very afraid of the answers.
Correct.
Right. But if you've not integrated that fear, that will translate in your birth in not the nicest of ways.
Oh, 100%. I think a couple of days back, or I got a call because I had done an online consult, a second opinion, whatever, a while ago. We had done some days. Like she was also gestationally diabetic, other things we had discussed. And I always say to them, ultimately, your care provider is the one responsible for you. I can lead you through one, two, three things. I can help you with your exercise things. I can help you with your diet. Whatever you feel like as a support system, I can help you. But at the end of the day, you have to ask these questions of your care provider and find that comfort. So then there comes a call saying, tell me, if my baby is breech. What should I do? Can my care provider is telling me that by 37 weeks plus I should have a cesarean section. So here, see again, the questions are based upon their understanding very rightly of what they want to hear for an answer, right? So here I am saying, yep, there is no real difference. Even if your care provider wants to do a cesarean section, that's okay, as long as you have understood the risk, benefits, whatever, and whatever the care provider's ability to, the skills in terms of the breech birth are, no problem. But there is no real risk in terms of waiting for labor to begin. Yeah, and know this, for if you should talk to your care provider, tell her if your bag of waters breaks, you will come in. Tell her if this thing, whatever, if labor starts, you will come in. Or if you have crossed 40 weeks, I think it's a perfect time for you to negotiate that with your care provider. Then finally, as I'm about to say, yep, okay, do you have all the information? Go speak with her. She says, well, I have amniotic fluid levels of 25.8. So I'm
Now
like,
the situation
okay,
changes.
this makes sense then. I don't think your care provider wants for the bag of waters to break and you to have a cord prolapse. So see, without everyone knowing what the
Yes.
circumstances are, you cannot give opinions online, which I find like really hard, because I think everyone's rooting for the right thing. No one's
What is
saying,
the right thing?
nobody wants. Exactly. But at the same time, that's a big question. So we should talk about
We
that. What
should.
is that
We
right thing,
should.
right? But I think, I mean, generally if you go to a group which is pro natural birthing, everyone's rooting for the mom to have a natural birth. Let's assume that's the thing, right? But at the end of the day, what is right for her, is something that should be very personal based upon her body, her baby, and her care provider. I think that's the conversation they should. What do you think is the right thing?
Yeah, what is the right thing? No, is there any group, any individual, any medical practitioner, any family that don't want the right thing for their child? Let's start with there. I
Exactly.
don't see that at all. So we'd say that everybody's evaluating risk from their perspective. Now, if they just have a conversation about the perspective, they might get to the right thing much faster with more
Exactly.
trust.
Exactly.
And I love your word between the consult and the conversation, because in the conversation, when you are heard, when the other person is interested in you, that's the bedrock of trust.
Absolutely.
That's the
Absolutely.
bedrock of trust, that, this person is hearing me out. At some level, what I'm saying is of value.
Correct.
By just that
Absolutely.
simple conversation that the midwife has, she has already instilled the seed of, I am listening to you,
Mm-hmm.
I am listening to your body, I am
Mm-hmm.
listening to your baby. You can too.
Yes, 100%. I think so many examples. The woman walks in. This is her fifth baby, which there has been a silent abortion, right? Now we have sent her to my backup care provider. She has said yes, we need to have this process. We can put the tablets and we'll wait and whatever. They walk in and there is this look. Obviously, any pregnancy, how many you have had is super precious. There's this think of, okay, tell me what do I need to do, and you sit down and I look at them and I can see their faces, right? And I tell them, just process will happen. I want to take this moment to honor that you both are going through a hard time. That's it. That ice is broken, right? They are in a space where they feel okay to let a few tears out. They are in a space to say, okay, what are the preferences? What are the things that can happen between starting this procedure to ending the procedure, and they feel very validated, right? And I think that's the moment of, like, I am a human being, I'm being looked at as a human being with emotions, with intellect, with ability to make good choices for myself, and the person in front of me is saying, we are going to be participative and we are going to make these decisions about your body and your baby as partners in this process.
Yeah.
And that's what is really missing. That's where this whole trust building exercise is missing, because we are not enabling, as a society, again, and you and I have talked about this multiple times, as a society we are not enabling the woman and the partner to grow as a parent, without really putting in so many, whether, again, like you said, everybody wants the right thing, right? But but everyone's
What is
saying, do this, don't do that. But in the moment the woman conceives, and the younger she is, the harder it is. I find in my practice, that the moment she conceives, everyone else takes over what she should be feeling, what she should be doing, what she should not be doing. There is, I don't know what minute of 24 hours she has where she can sit down and say, wow, I'm pregnant. Where is that moment of pause? You whip out the urine stick, you pee on the stick, and you come out and say you're pregnant. And from there, okay, let's rush to the doctor. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's take this first
eat for two?
consultation, first appointment, and they're like, take a breath. You've just rolled out of bed. It's okay to be calm for a little while. But that's the place where we have started the cascading effects of not believing in the body, not believing in yourself, and going from test to test, scan to scan, consultation to consultation, to validate that your body, which is growing a baby, which is as good as having food, or drinking water or whatever, we have now made it into some sort of a ritual and practice that needs to happen. Not internal ritual, external ritual, right?
Most of it is external ritual. So this is exactly what we say. So you go to the doctor in your first, say, second trimester. First trimester, you go, you get a confirmation, they send you off with prenatals and say, come after 12 weeks.
Right.
We'll talk to you then.
Yeah.
So the first 12 weeks, which is the entire human being made,
Yes.
the supply chain being set up, the placenta being set up, is on autopilot. But nobody understands that.
Yeah.
Then you go for one visit a month for 15 minutes.
Right.
But the other 29 days, 23 hours, and 45 minutes, who do you trust?
Yep.
And we are not thinking in terms of that. Our narration is not around that. We start. I don't know where it starts. It's like a spiral. We
Mm-hmm.
don't trust our children to know what they are feeling. We shut them
Exactly.
down. We put them in behaviors. We have had a conversation about that. We don't trust our teenagers to make good decisions. We've already labeled them and put an expectation because you're a teenager, it's not going to be a good time. We
Correct.
don't expect women to make good decisions. We've already given them a set narrative of which category they fall into, like the right or the wrong category. So now they have to live up to the norms of that category. We don't give men an opportunity to trust themselves because we've already told them how they should be as men. What is the criteria of success? You're not man enough. You haven't done A, B, C, D, and E. And then in a childbirth class, we say, trust your body.
No, it's not going to happen. Yes.
It's even goes further than that. When this baby is coming out in his own steam, the doctor says, no, 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 we have to pull him out because we don't trust the baby can come out. And so I want you to talk about, as a midwife, what does it feel to see the power of that baby as you hold the space? So, we've had these conversations as doulas that if we've done a really good prenatal and in a good birth, we feel redundant. Neha says it many times. And then I said, but I know, and I repeat this, that the work that we've done before is the value, and that
Correct.
value is of trust.
Correct.
And so tell us a little bit about those feelings that you as a midwife have when you see this mom saying, I can't do it, I can't do it. And then, suddenly she knows, and there's no denying it that she can. Tell me a little bit about that.
That space is that transformation happens sometime, some point where she starts to feel that power. So I think that's where going from trying to negotiate that pain and discomfort and whatever, suddenly she has that raw power which she starts feeling over one, two, three, maybe pushes, or maybe just feeling a lot of pressure. And then the whole atmosphere changes because now she knows it's her who is doing the work and nobody else. But then, like, there is all these discomforts, and we talk about it, but until the woman actually experiences, whether it's the perineum stretching, whether it's feeling, like, again, lack of, what shall we say, the feeling of a little bit of shame when she feels like, oh my God, I'm going to poop or I'm going to pee, all that sort of weaves in and out. And we kind of just say that you have to do all this. You have to let everything out before the baby comes out. And then different people, different things. Some women suddenly become very calm and then we'll ask them, do you want a mirror in front of you? And they will look at it and go, wow. And then with that mirror, each contraction, they will look and push. Amazing, because you just feel that sense of that purpose. I know I can see my baby. I'm pushing. Everything is to actually get that baby out. Some women will actually touch themselves. And again, typically in the medical colleges and wherever you see, you're taught if the woman starts to touch her own baby, it's like slapped out.
Yeah.
It's a sterile field. My God. Really?
Sterile? Yeah, it is.
Very
For her.
extraordinarily. Yes. Um, I would say a sacred field instead of a sterile field, but that's what it is. So you're taught that. And again, sensuality is not.
Oh, we lost her. That was a touchy moment. We want her back. Okay, let's see if we can get Vijaya back. Or is it me?
Divya, we'll wait for her to connect back.
Yeah. I'm sending her a message. I think she'll be back. I think it was a patchy bit.
You just went off all of a sudden.
Yes, I think you said the word sensuality and we got censored.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah, I think it was like that.
Yeah, I think it
Oh
was
my God,
exactly that. How can you say this word? No,
but you can say it.
but yeah,
Yes.
I think we don't acknowledge sensuality and sex as a part of what makes the baby. What goes into making a baby, what goes into getting a baby out, and so if the woman is not, and in her always in this back of the mind, everything that we have been told from childhood has just been that there is some sort of shame to acknowledging this side of you, right? And if that's been your entire grooming, and that's been the place in terms of nobody talking to you about it, hey, you don't expect it. We've had a woman who had her first baby somewhere else, had an episiotomy, and even though we were saying no, 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 this baby will come, this is her second baby, right? And then suddenly she says, I am feeling electric shock. Okay, then, but that was the only time she probably experienced,
Yeah.
um, and that sensual part of her. But I just feel like these are the things that when we don't acknowledge it, we don't allow the woman to hold herself up, move into a different position, feel good about it, talk to her husband holding her, that entire hormonal physiology being lost. Then you're in this place where you're constantly looking outward to see, pull my baby out, pull my baby out. Okay,
Yeah.
every woman at some point when it gets that intense will say, can't you do something to get my baby out? Now that's not bad. And then you say, no, I can't, you're doing it and you're great, and they move on. But then there's this other part where there is that extraordinary fear like I had today, and it took way longer than it needed to
Yeah.
because she wasn't able to let go. And part of it is she didn't want to have her husband in there because of that same thing. There's this whole side of the woman which we are not addressing at all. And
The whole
last but
body
not,
side of the woman.
oh,
The side of
absolutely.
yeah. Yeah.
No, so true. And the last part, which I think is beautiful for me as a midwife to observe, is that there is that moment when it comes to that baby being there.
Yeah.
And that's the moment where it's between nature or God or whatever you may call that, a different kind of sacredness, the woman and her baby. There is literally nothing I can do. So you talk about, or Neha talks about being redundant. I am also redundant in that time because in that moment, all you can do is take a deep breath and say, yes, this is going to happen. We keep encouraging her, but there
Yeah.
is nothing you can do. And that's the beauty of it because then you don't need to do anything. The baby rotates, the baby comes, and there is also that other few seconds where it has to go from the fetal circulation to the newborn
Yeah.
circulation.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do, right? If it doesn't happen, we have 3,000 things we can do, but mostly it happens on its own, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. 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 I also find that there is this point of paradox, no, when you say there is nothing you can do because there's nothing to be done. But
Exactly.
by holding the wider field, you're letting what needs to happen arise. So it's not
Yes,
that you're redundant.
correct.
And
Agreed.
in our culture we say Shakti. Shakti is basically
Mm,
energy. So you're holding actually an energetic field. You're melting the
absolutely.
body and holding an energetic field where you really don't have to do. So this idea of do and just be,
Yes,
because there's a human being coming into the world. By
correct.
just being, and that needs trust, no? Vijaya, for you to be able to trust, to sit because you know it will happen.
Yes,
Not quite
100%.
of when it needs help. Remember, you said that those few you can't do anything, but then you have to if something is needed. To know when
Yes,
to be and when to do, that is
yes.
probably the definition of trust for me here.
I think so too. I think so too. And I think that is a very deep seated thing. It can be a lived in experience in your own body. Like as a midwife, I have, and there's a part of me who's a midwife, part of me is a woman. That's one of the reasons why I think whether it's any woman giving birth, when she's supported by other women, there is a whole different energy, right? Because there is something as a lived in experience, not necessarily being a mother, but as a woman, inherent energy that you have, which is supportive, which is gentle, which is mindful, which is maybe kind, which is in sync with what you feel internally, I think. And I think that's what we bring in when in that room at that moment. But generally also knowing that and somehow deeply trusting that this is biology. The process that got the baby in is also going to be equally capable of bringing the baby out.
Yeah.
The observations, again, the medical schools, the way they are schooled and the way the midwifery school schools it by apprenticeship, just observing, watching, learning from other people around you. I think that is worth its weight in gold. It's not about books, it's not about certificates. There is something beyond all of that where you can have a mentor who you have just watched and learned from, where you have watched it, like you can do 1,000 different chores, but still be there in that space and watch what is the language that she is using, what is the touch that she is having, how does she emotionally connect? And somewhere I think that is the hallmark of a good midwife, a good doula, a good care provider, because there can be four births happening in four different rooms, and every woman for sure will need something entirely different from your. One might need super hand holding and pressing against you. One might just say, you just be there for me. One might need focus as you're looking into her eyes, and that's the only thing. Everyone needs a little something different, and
Yeah.
that's an intuitive part which you have to tap into,
Yeah.
trusting the process, trusting that intuition, trusting your gut feeling, and say, I'm going to go with it, right?
Yeah.
And that's why there is no recipe for birth. There shouldn't ever be. There should be guidelines, but there should never be like protocols. There should never be like just check boxes. There should be a wide array of, things that both the mother and the caregiver can tap into to have this conversation surrounding it. And I think like yesterday, one of the things that you said a little bit earlier, like talking about those limitations. If
Yeah.
the mom can talk about limitations, the care provider certainly can talk about limitations. It does not make them any less capable, right?
Yeah.
So we just had another birth where the woman actually has some combination of essential hypertension, but definitely what we call as a white coat hypertension. Some of it has been ignored in the past, right? And I felt almost blindsided when they came from another place and sort of felt that, like I found these pressures creeping up and going higher and higher. But there was always this conversation that when I'm at home, my pressure is this. When I'm at home, this is that. And eventually I talked with my backup provider. We had we did all her tests and everything, scans, everything was okay. But her pressure was galloping. We had to put her on medication. And then when this conversation kept coming up, I had to eventually say, if we were doing a home birth, I could take your home reading numbers. Fact
Mm.
is, we are in the birth center right now, and the only way I can help you be safe is if you understand and come to the belief that these numbers are the true numbers right now, and you work with us together to
Yeah.
ensure that what am I going to do to keep you and baby safe with these numbers,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that she in her mind she has this story, and probably in some ways real because she's had it for a few years now, but I can't work with that myth
No.
knowing what the numbers are right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And similarly at one point I said to her that I have never done this before, and there is nothing wrong in telling her that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
giving her the option, saying that if you don't feel good over here, I can refer you to a multi-specialty hospital where you may have a better chance.
Yeah.
Do you trust the process? Do you trust yourself? You feel good. Looking at you, you look very normal. That's the other part of trust, right?
Yeah.
When I look at her, she doesn't look sick, but her
Mm.
numbers are showing me enormous, like enormous, right? But at the same time, I have to, this is not some mythical number. I know what are all the potential and possible complications that can arise, and
Right.
yet she looks okay,
Yeah.
and yet she wants something. And then we have this conversation that, I've never done this before.
Mm.
Let's see what we can do together. And that's where it is. Then she puts her trust in you back and says, okay, if after all this you still feel that XYZ intervention or even a C-section is the only option, I think we are okay to go with it. But I would like a trial of XYZ. And now you're coming to you coming to a point where you can meet somewhat quarter of a way or half of a way. And eventually she had a baby, and it was a very nice, easy birth. But we had to negotiate through all this drama, and I probably got a good 500 gray hairs. But but that's what trust is. I think at the end of the day, that's what it is.
So when we were talking about this particular thing, earlier, I thought that I must say that possibility in every moment and limitation in every single moment is the two
Mhm.
sides of the same coin.
Yes.
In
Yes.
every moment, if you're not paying attention, you will miss the possibilities, but you
Correct.
will also miss the limitations. And
Correct.
if we can just hold that and trust that in this moment, what is true? Let me
Yes.
ask my possibilities, let me ask my limitations, and they are both of them, because there is no such thing as right and ideal and whatever that means. In
Correct.
fact, if there was an ideal world, we would be bored out of our minds because we
Exactly.
would be predictable.
Truth. True. Very, very true. Very true.
Carry on single focus because there was nothing at all. But in every moment, there is a possibility of going this way or the other way. Can
Yes.
I be with both of them? And that is also trust. That
Yes.
no matter what is coming, I am me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can choose either, or I can move with either. That is also trust. So I think trust in birth can be defined in so many ways. But I do want to, hearing your conversation, what you said, it struck a note with me, Vijaya. When you talked about the paradigms that are shaping women, so-called preparation of birth is all about, achieving a result. It
Mm-hmm.
is focused so much on what can go wrong. So how is she going to trust herself when you have laid out what can go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
all about, defending or
Mm-hmm.
achieving something or telling everybody what they should do. It is not about how I feel or I am in this situation. So how are they ever going to trust themselves? Ever.
I think the one thing that I would definitely think that especially pregnant women, uh, generally women, but especially pregnant women, considering the kind of scenarios that they are in right now, the milieu they are in right now, I think they have to be very cognizant to the fact that it is in their hands to draw boundaries around themselves.
Yeah.
I think this is very important. We talk about it in the clinic. How much information to give who is well within their capacity. If you go out there and tell 10 different people everything and expect that opinion, you talked about this earlier in the context of the groups, but even in the context of their home, in the context of their neighbors, in the context of whatever, I think if you do that, then you are welcoming unnecessary responses, and then your mind goes bing, 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 and then you are unable to sit with yourself and decide, how do I feel in this moment? How do I feel in my body? Do I feel good? Do I not feel good? Do I trust my care provider? Do I feel that this baby is growing well inside me? Am I enjoying this moment? Am I feeling the kicks as too intense? These are things because you're expecting only external answers, right? So the woman who comes in and says, "Oh my God, my baby is kicking too much now. I feel terrible." It's not bad to say that, but then ask yourself, what is terrible about it? What can I do to make it a little bit better? Am I fearful about the too many kicks? Right? Those conversations you have to have with yourself. But because now you are in this instant gratification mode, right? WhatsApp and all these things. And gosh, for every time I get a WhatsApp and I read it and I'm going, what did we do when we didn't have WhatsApp, right? Because you
Right.
sat with it and said, does this feel normal or not, right? Oh, ma'am, I'm feeling so many movements. Is it normal?
I
When
don't
will you
know.
learn to ask yourself, does it feel normal?
Right. There was a question earlier that says, how do we build trust? That is the way. That's the
Yes.
pathway that you have now said, is to have or hear that internal conversation. It is screaming at you.
Yes,
Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. And you're not listening because you're so busy listening outside. So that is
exactly.
such amazing advice. I mean, and I don't think you give it as an advice, but I would take it as one, is to, when was the last time I actually heard myself?
Yes.
And if I'm feeling terrible, it's terrible. What about is terrible? What is it telling me? and dig deeper and deeper and deeper. That is the answer to that question that we got asked a little bit earlier. How do you build trust in your body? Is by relating to those experiences that your body is telling you, showing you, feelings, emotions, sensations, very sensorial world.
Absolutely.
Oh,
The other thing is the body will also tell you when something is terribly wrong. That's the thing. Most of the times when you're questioning and asking, is this okay? Your body is actually saying it's okay. It's your mind that's telling you, ask the question, get a validation, right?
yeah,
But the body is actually saying it's okay. When
yeah.
it's not okay, you will run to your care provider without
Without
her
asking.
asking you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
telling you without question, because I think that inborn sort of build, it's an inborn mechanism of safety, of survival that every mom and every baby has.
yeah.
Unless you have completely negated everything and said, I have no feelings, no emotions, no connection, that's a whole different story. But then you
Even
have to
that
be
is
deep.
telling you something. Even
Exactly.
that is telling you something.
Correct. Or you're deeply drugged. One of those things, right?
But
But
that is also your body saying that you're not feeling me means you're disconnected. So when we do trauma work and we do somatics and we say,
Hmm,
how do you feel in your body? And they say, we feel nothing. Even that is information. The body
correct.
is still trying to give you information about what you're saying, about what
Correct.
you're feeling or where you're at. So it's still giving you. But that is so true. Don't talk about only pregnancy. When you fall sick, the doctor doesn't come home, the expert doesn't call you and say, you know what, I had dreamt about you from my expertise and I know you're sick, so come into the hospital. You say, oh, aaj to kuch theek nahi hai, I don't feel too well, maybe I should check with my doctor. Or
Hmm.
you will say, oh, I feel like a sore throat, maybe I'll gargle today. So you are also looking at answers intuitively,
Exactly.
or we don't stop to think about that this is how you start to trust your body because you're mindful of that conversation with your body. Yeah, that
No,
was that. I mean, I have to take a pause to kind of take it in because sometimes having saying it for a very long time and having it reflected back is so sweet. I know why I enjoy my conversations with you, Vijaya,
no,
because
me too. It's lovely
you're
talking to
always
you
willing to.
always.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. Okay, so tell me now. I'm not going to ask you for advice because then you're also saying giving it from outside, saying do this, do that, listen to your body. But if you were to kind of sum up for women to approach birth,
Mhm.
especially if they are looking for natural birth, what are the mindful exercises that you might suggest just to start to get a feedback from their own bodies? What would you say?
I would say, first of all, I think primarily sit with your pregnancy for some time. Wait until it feels a little bit real to you. Yes, there is this checkpoints and checklist that yes, go get a viability scan. Make sure that their heartbeat has developed. Make sure that whatever the tests and scans are always there. But sit with it and see what does it mean to you. I think part of the process also has to start, and I think this I'll talk as a woman. I think it has to start. Sorry, start from, do you even want this baby? I think if we have got into the pregnancy and childbirth as because you want to please your parents, because you want to please somebody else, because you suddenly feel your clock ticking, but you're really mentally not there in that space, you will still come there, but I think it will take you a lot longer because then you're also battling this internal battle of really, am I really pregnant? And then there is the other part who have just decided because they've said, okay, get married, whatever, or get into a relationship, and then you have to have a baby. There is no other choice, right? Now, in each one of those things, I feel one of the most important things they can do is say, okay, now that this has been done, I've decided, I'm pregnant now. How do I want to let this pregnancy unfold for me? Sure, you have gone and read blogs, you have gone to websites, you have seen YouTube videos, you have done that little bit of homework. But then what is it that you want? So starting with, for example, how do I visualize my birth? With whom, when I open my eyes in the middle of an intense discomfort, pain, whatever you may call it, in whichever sort of background of education that you want, hypnobirthing calls it, rushes, whatever you may call it. At the end of the day, it is some sort of bodily intense feeling. Let's talk about it like that. In the middle of that, when you open your eyes, who do you visualize around you? What makes you feel comfortable and confident that whatever confidence you have is going to be enhanced by the people around me, not be pulled down? And then work on the other aspects. Those come later. Everyone jumps into, like, if you say, come on, okay, let's do yoga. So then there is this whole thing saying that if I do 10 sessions of yoga with 5 sessions of prenatal aerobics with 10 sessions of Lamaze classes equals to natural birth. No, it does not. Because not even in 1 minute you have sat down and said, how does all that work? Right? Like your body leads you to drink water when you feel thirsty, you should feel an ability to quench your thirst of knowledge, bodily knowledge, by choosing whichever way that you want, whether it's a care provider, whether it's reading, listening, learning, and then feel, okay, now I have all these choices in front of me. Now I can make a good choice of where to birth, with whom to give birth, and then let the events unfold. And last but not the least, we have talked about this earlier, surrender to the process. But to come to that surrender, you have to have had all these other things circled. And this is like the hub is you, your baby. Spokes are all those things. And eventually you have a baby and it still is inside. That's the labyrinth we talk about too. You walk in, you walk out, but then you have to walk those paths in many different ways to find that final
Treasure.
outcome is always going to be a healthy mom and a healthy baby. But the experience of it is then going to enhance the way that you see yourself and your baby. You're seeing it in a whole new light now as to how powerful your body is, how beautiful it is, and how nicely that this process worked for you. And even if you've had a C-section, no, doesn't mean that you've still not done all that work. You're still coming out of it powerful because you have now done the homework, found a care provider who respects you, gone into it knowing all the possibilities, and then come out of it with a C-section still being supported and still having that cocoon of support around you in the postpartum period. And I think half of our birth trauma and our postpartum depression would get lessened if we had that and not just the normal delivery as the only single point out of outcome.
Yeah, I agree. Those are the wisest words. It's music to my ears. Even if you have a C-section at the end of it, you will still have the confidence of knowing I made choices which were relevant for me and good for my baby.
Absolutely.
Because I'm saying if you've done all that work, the C-section has not just been dropped on you, it is for a very valid reason.
Exactly.
Very wise words. Wonderful words. I think that is probably, if nothing else, and we take away this understanding of renegotiating yourself to become the mother of this baby, that is the foundation to find trust in your body, in your baby, in your birth, and yourself as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Vijaya. I know you midwives have long days and you've given us your precious time. We are just over the hour. We have some do we have questions? We've kind of addressed, but we do want to acknowledge people who've written to us. We have Megha Ratilada writing in to say, she loves hearing you, Vijaya madam. We have Ravali V saying that body speaks, and she's talking about her own experience. As the baby turned breech in 36 weeks, I came to know something happened. And then she's saying that, do you remember, Vijaya ma'am? And so these are really lived experiences that are being reflected. Your words are coming from that place of trust because it's a lived experience for you. How many women you've guided and seen the process work for. Thank you very much, Vijaya, for coming and spending time with us on CoffeeCon 2020 at My Child First.
Thank you very much. I think this has been, as always, absolutely amazing. And I think you're a very good host. You allow the conversation to unfold. And I've always had these beautiful, beautiful conversations with you, even that not on air, but always in person as well. And I think thank you very much for inviting me. And I think that you guys are doing an amazing job putting out all this beautiful information for people to access. And I think that's what it is. I think none of us can do this job alone. If we are looking to change perceptions of society towards women, babies, bodies, birth, I think we all have to come together to, in each one of us in our own capacity and pay it forward, right? That's actually what we are doing. Every one of us who lives through this experience talks about things. Someone who hears pays it forward and again shares it with somebody else. People who have good experiences share it with others. And I think when we come together as a field of energy field of women and care providers and practitioners and women giving birth, I think that's a whole another movement. And I'm hoping that we are at that inflection point in the country where actually we read all these reports, right, that in the last decade we have had a 300% increase in cesarean sections. That's enormous. Have our bodies changed 300% in 10 years? Doesn't make any sense. So we all, I think, have a collective responsibility to bring our consciousness back to us and say, my body, my baby, it is a dictatorship, not a democracy, but then do the inner work and make sure that you make your voices heard. And that's really all this is about.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, this Coffee Con conversation is open to everybody. If you miss it live and if you register for it on our platform, you have access to all the conversations for 30 days. And we are hoping to keep on having these conversations. It's the conversations that make the difference. That's the difference between the consult and the conversation. I love that sentence. I'm going to use it many times. I'm going to. So
Lovely
you can
being
access.
here. And,
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
and yes, have a good night, and we will see each other
None of
soon.
us want to go. I don't want to go. I can keep talking, but we are at the hour and we are going to say good night.
Yes. Good night. See you soon. Bye.